Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
We're here this morning to give kavod acharon, to pay our final respects to Gabriel Addi, Gabriel ben Shalom. We begin with the recitation of Tehillim, of Psalms. Tehillim is more Aleph. Ashrei ha'ish asher lo halach ba'atzat risha'im u'v'derech ha'teim lo amad v'moshav leitzim lo yashav ki b'torat Adonai chefzo v'torato yageh yomam v'layla v'ha'ke'et shatol al pal gemayim asher peryo yitain b'ito v'aleo lo yibol v'chol asher yaseh yatzliach lochein harisha'im kim kamot asher tedefenu ruach al kein lo yakumu risha'im b'mishpat v'chata'im ba'adat tzadikim ki yodeh Adonai derech tzadikim v'derech risha'im toved. Happy is the one who has not followed the counsel of the wicked, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the company of the scornful. Rather, that one's delight is in the Torah of the Lord, meditating in God's Torah day and night, and will be like a tree planted by streams of water, that yields its fruit in season, whose leaf will not wither, and whatever that one does prospers. Thinking about the words of this opening psalm about a tree that yields its fruit in season, having gotten to know the Addi family, the Kolaski family over the course of the last few years, being able to celebrate simchas with all of you, it's unbelievable to see the prospering. And this prospering should continue even beyond a lifetime filled with Torah and mitzvos. Should continue to prosper for many, many years to come. Continue with Psalm 15. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai miyagur b'ohalecha, miyishkon b'har kodshecha, holech tamim ufol tzedek, v'dover emet v'lvavo, lo ragal al lishono, lo asa l're'eu ra'a, v'cherpa lo nasa al kirovo, nivzeh be'inav nim'as, v'et yireh Adonai yichabed, nishpa laharav lo yamir, kaspo lo natan v'neshech, v'shochad al naki lo akach, oseh eila lo yimot la'olam. A song of David, Lord, who may sojourn in your tent, who may dwell on your holy mountain. One who walks in the purity, does what is righteous, and speaks the truth from the heart, who has no slander on their tongue, nor has done harm to a fellow, nor cast disgrace towards a neighbor, in whose eyes a contemptible person is repulsive, but who honors those who are in awe of the Lord, who swears truthfully even to personal hurt and never retracts, who does not lend money on interest nor take a bribe against the innocent. One who does these things shall never falter. Now I want to ask Addi's rabbi for many years, Gabriel Addi, to share some words, Divrei Hesped.
Thank you, Rabbi Davis. Kvod mishpacha, the entire family, Mrs. Addi, and the children, grandchildren, to all those faces that I haven't seen in a while, going back yet to what is known as the old neighborhood. And we come today to give this final COVID, this final Zeicha, to a beloved member of our community, and especially to a special member, Mispalel Toimech, supporter of my father's shul, my father Olav Shalom, who he was there for many, many, many decades. Mr. Addi represented, as we stand here, not only the devoted and the special, the loving husband to his dear wife of so many years, not only the dedicated and devoted father and grandfather, but Mr. Addi represented a whole era, a whole time, a whole past of Moroccan Jewry who left Morocco in the 60s and made their way here to the United States and started a new life. And Baruch Hashem, God was good to him. God gave him hatzlacha. He gave him success, not usually as we term success in America, which is usually meant as financial success. But he gave him success in mishpacha, beautiful children. And he saw those children go on and continue with their spouses to get married, and many, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and even great-great-grandchildren. He was able to say, I saw the dorot, I saw the generations continue on during my lifetime. And this brought him the greatest pride, nachat. This brought him the greatest happiness that you could imagine, that he saw his family flourish. He saw his family continue on in the derech, in the way of his fathers and his forefathers, because it was not only secular success and education that was important to him, but what was more important to him was that there was Torah and there was mitzvot, and there was a continuation of the Ruach Yisrael, the way of our forefathers, that he could say, that's the success that I had here in America, that all my children continued in that way. And therefore, when we come here, and I stare down at this Aron, I think to myself, this goes back many years. I was a small child yet in that neighborhood. I remember my father's Rechena Levrocha said, it says in the Torah, Vayavo Avram lispod l'sara v'livkota, that when Abraham lost his beloved wife, Sarah, it says he came, Vayavo Avram lispod l'sara, to eulogize his dear wife, v'livkota, and to cry over her passing. Everyone, we all know the Torah portions. She was an older woman. She was 127 years old when she passed away. And Abraham got up, who was 137 at that time. So the Midrash asks, V'Yitzchak heichon hoya, his son Isaac, Yitzchak, who she had as her miracle baby at the age of 90, she gave birth to this little Yitzchakl. Where was this Yitzchak, who at that time already was 37 years old, an adult? Where was he? Why doesn't the Torah say that he came? He wasn't at the funeral of his beloved mother. There's different tirutzim, different answers that are given in the Midrash, but I remember my father said, he said Yitzchak was there, without a doubt. This was her only child. There's no question that he would not have missed the funeral of his beloved mother, Sarah. But Yitzchak said, I only knew Sarah when she was 90, when she was an older woman. That's when I knew her. Let somebody who knew her when she was young and vibrant and full of zest and full of life, my father, let him get up and give the hesped. I say that as I heard from the rabbi. He knows the last few years, he knows as the Addis came to Cherry Hill. But I remember Mr. Addi yet, when he was young and vibrant and coming to shul, no matter what the weather was, the Addis would be there. Together with his sons, with Steve, they would come. They would always be in shul on a Shabbat. You could not hold them back. This is where he wanted to be. This is where his heart was. This is where he invested so much of his energies, his financial support, always with an open hand for years afterwards. And they never lost touch. And even when the shul moved, as I just mentioned to someone, every Purim, Mr. and Mrs. Addi, I remember to Kriyat HaMegillah, they would come and they would be part of that. He was a special man. Number one, I think he exemplified. We are now in the period from Shiva B'Tammuz until Tisha B'Av. We are in a period of mourning, of national mourning. And we know that one of the things that brought about this calamity upon the Jewish people during this time in history is because of the midot, that they may have had positive traits, but they also had many negative traits. The feelings one to another was not what it should be. And I thought to myself yesterday when I spoke to Mrs. Addi, I said, you know, Mrs. Addi, I don't think there's one person, not one, after all these years, who could say a negative word about Mr. Addi. Not one. He went through life leaving a legacy of midot tovot, a man who didn't speak much, didn't want to speak too much. And that's a big mile. Lo motzosi dovo tov mishtika, say our sages. Never found anything better than not to say too much. And of course, without a doubt, never anything negative, anything bad, any lashon hara, nothing. But always with a smile and with a warmth and with a compassion. And I thought to myself, you know, Mr. Addi, you truly exemplified that what it says in the Mishnah. It says the three Talmidim, there's different girsaot in this Mishnah. But in one girsa, the Mishnah says that the Talmidei Rabbi Meir came to him, the students of Rabbi Meir, and they said, Eizu derech, what is the single most important characteristic, the single most important quality that a person should develop in their lifetime, that they should be considered a successful Jew, a successful Yid? And all the Talmidim, the first one said, Chaver tov, be a good friend to another individual. Not today friends, it's not Facebook friends we're talking about. We're talking about a true friend to someone, another person, your life was worth living. The second one was ayin tov, to have a good eye. And a good eye means the ability to be happy for others. We spoke about this last night. He was always happy in the simcha of another Jew. He was always happy in the accomplishments of another person. He never was jealous. He never asked why him and why not me. Always, always happy on his home. That small home, which was the center of the family, that was the mishpacha, and we would wait for every yontif, for every chag, when everybody would gather at the Addi's home, the children and the next generation, and his brother-in-law would always come there together. And I think it goes without saying that we have to remember that he was not only a special husband, father and grandfather, etc., he was a special, special son-in-law. He gave kavod to his mother-in-law, to his shviga, that you do not find. More than maybe his even own mother. And he gave away his room, his place. This is for her. A lesson that I think we should all learn. And that's what Agla de Hesped Luya, says the Gemara. Part of a funeral, the main part of the funeral, is not for him. His neshama is already in Gan Eden. He is already pured. But his neshama, today we come and we learn from him how we should act and how we should be. And getting back to that Mishnah, Ayin Tov, always happy with someone else's accomplishments. Omar Rabbi Akiva, says the last student. Omar Rabbi Akiva, I too have thought about this question, and I have come to a different conclusion. And I say, you're not born with this. You have to develop this in life. But if a person in the years that God gives him on this earth, and Baruch Hashem, he had a full life, a complete life. We say it in Shabbat, the years that God gives us, Shishim Shana, 60 some people, Shivim Shana, 70 some years, Shmonim Shana, into the 80s, that God gave him a full and a complete life. And we have to say, and I must mention this, that up until, as Steve mentioned to me, up until a few years ago, right before COVID, Mr. Addi was still working and was still okay and go to work and mentally was on the ball. Big bracha, a great bracha indeed. And Rabbi Akiva said, the last thing is leiv tov, that a person has to develop in their lifetime, a warm, a sensitive, a feeling, an empathetic heart for other people. And as we stand here today and we gaze down at this Aron, I think we all say Mr. Addi, you didn't only accomplish one of these traits in your lifetime, you accomplished them all. You were a chaver tov, you were a good friend. You were an ayin tov, you were a person who always had Baruch Hashem on his lips. Whatever God gave him, he was happy. And above all, he was a leiv tov. He was a person with a warm and sensitive and feeling heart. And that's why the Rebbeinu Shalom gave him so many years together with you, Mrs. Addi. Baruch Hashem, he saw the family grow and flourish, both here in the States and in Eretz Yisrael. Family, next, other generations. We come today to remember him. And we come today to say, Bila hamovas lanetzach umochad Hashem dimo me'al kol ponim. May God remove the scourge of death from the world. Today his neshama goes to its place. He should be a melitz yosha. He should be an advocate of only good tidings for you, for your entire mishpacha. You should continue to be the matriarch, the queen of the family. And to all of us who are here who know him for so many years, he should be a melitz yosha for all of us. We say, Amen.
Now going to call upon members of the family to share some words. First, ask Charlie to come speak.
Bershut, honored rabbis and family, it's hard to speak right now, but what really motivated me was when I was thinking about those amazing, precious memories that I had since I was a little boy in Casablanca, and all the wonderful times that I spent with my father, all the things we did. And you get older, and those memories start fading away. But you realize it, and you dream about it. Like, I'm dreaming I'm in Casablanca, and the next minute I'm in Yerushalayim when my parents came for my wedding, and we're like going from one place to another, and you wake up and you say, "Is this real?" And you realize it was real. It's not just a dream. Those precious memories were real. When my father I was a little boy going to kindergarten, first grade, he would ride me on the back of his motorcycle scooter, and he would fly down the road, and I'd be screaming, and he was laughing. He had that joy of life that just, now that I think about it, I didn't really think about it before, but it was just amazing, that joy of life that he had, that I, as the oldest in the family, can remember. And the other side, my father was more serious. He didn't say a lot, but he had a lot of feelings, and I saw it when I was a kid, that he was so active and always doing things, and always didn't want to sit around. They always want to be busy. And we'd on Shabbat in Casablanca, we'd walk for hours. He would take me. I was the lucky one. He would take me for hours and walk down the street, and come back home later at night. And those other times, he was very very active. He rode his bicycle all over Morocco, everywhere you can imagine on a bicycle. And then he got the motor scooter, and then he rode everywhere with that. And then he got a car and used to take us everywhere and spent so much time with us. Every Sunday we were somewhere, we'd go somewhere, and he would spend his money and his time so we would all enjoy ourselves, all the kids, and he made sure we were all well. I remember when we'd go swimming, he'd throw me in the deep water, and I'd be screaming. I hear my mother in the back, "What are you doing to him? What are you doing?" And he goes, "No, he's got to learn. He's got to learn how to swim." So, and because he wanted us to be motivated and be successful in life. And you know, then my parents came to Israel for my wedding, and that was such an amazing time that I'll never forget. That the whole family was there, and we were celebrating and dancing and Sheva Brachot. And it all right now, all those precious memories, they seem like a dream, like they never happened. But they really did happen. I was very fortunate to be there and to see it all. And he was never envious of anyone. He didn't care how much money somebody had or how successful they were. His whole family, his whole side of the family, they were all very, very wealthy people. His brothers and sisters and his cousins, and didn't mean much to him, you know. My mother would tease him a little bit. Oh, you see your cousin, you got all this money now, and you moved into this big villa, and he would be there, and I would hear my parents all the time. So what about it? So, and he would just like it was nothing. He didn't care. He was happy the way everything we were. And look at what we built. We didn't know. We don't know what the future is. We don't know how our family's going to be. But the tremendous chuyot of both my parents, that they come from great rabbis in Meknes and in Fez, Casablanca, it spread out through the generations and all the children, the grandchildren, and really the tremendous chesed that Hashem has shown our family. We can never be thankful enough. And I know now that it's all because of the tremendous chuyot of my mother and my father, that all these things came down. And I just want to say that when you're a kid and you're going to high school and you're with your friends, you don't think about these things. You think, oh, your parents take care of you because you're their son. They take care of you. I will come, I will go as I please, do whatever I want. But little did I realize that my parents thinking about me 24 hours a day. And all those good things, all those good midot, I grabbed from them, and I didn't even know. It was like subconscious. In your subconscious, all of a sudden you start caring for your children, your grandchildren, and you bring them stuff. Anytime you think that maybe they're missing something for Shabbat or this or that, you go and you bring it. You bring them some food, you bring them flowers, you bring them whatever. And I'm like, where does this all come from? It comes from my parents. That's the way they taught me, and it got in my head. And that's the way those things don't really sink into you till you're older yourself and you have your own wife and kids. And I just want to say that what I have now really, that I feel so fortunate, is I have those precious memories. Thank you.
I'd like to call up Robert to share a few words.
Just all the Rabbanim that came and the family. It says in Pirkei Avos, Emor meyat v'aseh harbe. I can't say a lot since my speaking time is short, but this saying in Pirkei Avos is a perfect statement that describes my father. He was not a big talker, but his actions spoke louder than his words. This I didn't write, but I just thought about it. I remember when we went to camp when we were young, and my parents never missed a visiting day, and it was not an easy trip. And I remember the last night of camp, they came up. It was like 12 o'clock at night. It was over. And my father made the trip with my mother, and then my father never complained. It's too hard. It's too difficult. He sacrificed his life for his family, and I'll never forget that. So that's an example of his actions speak louder than words. He didn't say much, but he worked very hard for the family, and He never complained that he had to travel far or take care of, whatever we needed, he gave us. One of the questions they ask when you go to Shemaim is, were you honest in business? I can honestly say that my father never cheated a customer in his business that is known for deceiving customers. Many customers were referred to him by others because they knew that my father would give them a fair and honest price. May the memory of Gabriel ben Shalom be a blessing.
Ask Ellie to come share a few words.
So, I guess, how do you praise somebody who never looked for attention or the spotlight? So luckily Robert did not take the same line from Pirkei Avos that I did. Hillel said, in a place where there are no men, said be a man. So it's kind of a theme. All right, so I'll start with the, my goal was to just tell people a little more about my dad. First thing was that he, okay, fearless. All right, so one thing, when you're with my dad, I remember that. You always felt safe, and so and I remember as a kid he would tell the stories about standing up for yourself in Morocco, and when he was a teenager, and the locals started up, he fought back. They never started up again, and that was his attitude. Stand up for yourself, stand up for the Jewish community. It was, it was no fear of, we didn't run away from anybody who would start up with us. But being fearless, I wrote down mentally, to not be afraid to take on challenges, right? And the success story. Think about the success story. It's to come to America, you're you barely know the language, 5 kids, and you're just you're a worker. You're working in a repair shop, and you have 5 kids, and then private school. You don't know that you're going to get a chance to be your boss, but you had the attitude of you're going to do something in life, really be great at it. And that's how he did it. He worked. Nobody, there was no, this is your success plan or promotion. He just kept working. And eventually, it was his business. And I think he took tremendous pride in being the boss and, controlling his destiny and not having to answer to anyone else. And so I just real quickly, so I do remember I was looking several years ago. I looked up Google reviews for Gabe's Auto Radiators. And my dad did not have a computer and did not spend time on the computer. I'm like, what's this Google reviews going to say? There were only like a couple reviews because this was already, later in his years that he was working. And I remember reading, there was like one review. It said, he did a great job, but and it said, but the old man is a little bit slow. And I thought about it. And I'm like, Well, you didn't know my dad when he was younger. Uh, he did work for Boeing. He did work for some ships. But the best part about it was that, this is probably in his late 70s. He said that the person said he did a great job. So, till the end, he did everything. It was going to be the best if he did it. So, tireless. I was just going to mention, that he was tireless on behalf of, obviously, for his kids. I don't think I appreciated it until I was much older, and I was a dad. That father would come home, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and that was a long day. And he never complained about it. But he also made tremendous sacrifices for, obviously, his family. Mentioned my grandmother, but his aunts, his uncles, everyone in the family who was here in Philadelphia. Was always sacrificing for them. When anything that they needed and help them out, and as well as the Jewish community. I still remember, back in the days when people used to actually fix their cars and they didn't get a new car every couple of years. So whenever, would be in Baltimore, be in Philadelphia, somebody's car break down, my dad would, it was one of the rabbis, one of the teachers, he'd get a look under the hood, see if he can get it up and running. And often did it, and I'm never going to think of charging them anything. He didn't think twice about it. And I didn't want to mention his love of Israel. So the number one topic, a lot of people get very passionate about American politics, and it's a big deal to them. But for him, the success of Israel and the Jewish state, that was the most important thing to him. You could talk to him every Shabbos, every Yom Tov. How is the state of Israel doing? I know he said when he was younger, he wanted to join the Israeli army. But it was always first and foremost on his mind. And also learning these, there's the Moroccan Sephardic customs that I didn't get, left as a young kid. But when, Shabbat, Yom Tov, in the Kiddush, the Haggadah would be said, it would sort of take me back to that place that, I don't remember as much, but I'm still, when I would say that Kiddush, or if I'm, when I'm repeating those customs, it's, everything was perfect then. So, what I learned, do great things in your life, but never seek attention, and your actions will speak for themselves.
I'm going to ask some representatives of the next generation. We'll ask David to come up to share a few words.
Bereshus, my father, and the Chashuv Rabbanim here today. I wanted to write something down. I was actually in Boston when my mother texted me for a business conference, and I thank God I was able to make the last flight out to be back here. And so I'll be very brief. First, want to just say that to be 37 years old and have a grandfather for that many years is something to be very grateful for. I'm very grateful to Hashem that I had 37 years with my Saba. It's not so common for people my age to have 3 grandparents, both my mother's father and mother's father are still alive, Baruch Hashem, and my amazing grandmother. So I'm very grateful. But there's 2 things I want to bring out about my Saba. I was texting Eli Marin last night, an old family friend, just letting him know where the Levi was going to be, and he said something, the perfect description of my grandfather and my Saba and Savta. He said he carried himself very regally. It's something my wife's always mentioned, that my Saba and Savta always look like a king and a queen. And I was thinking, like, what does that mean for me? What does that mean from us? What could we learn from that? To me, it means that a Jew is always proud of who he is. You should never be embarrassed. Stand upright, stand tall. Be proud of who you are, be proud of your heritage. Don't be embarrassed ever. Our father is a king. That means that the boys and men, the men and boys are princes, and the women and the girls are princesses, and that means that you should be proud of who you are. Walk with a confidence, walk with a regality, and that's the way that my grandparents carried themselves, and that's the way my Saba carried himself. He was a very large presence because of his height, but he just always looked like he was just a proud person. He was proud of his family. He was proud of his heritage. He was proud of who he was. He was never ever embarrassed. Sometimes you see people go on a vacation and they kind of hide their identity. He wasn't like that. He was proud. He was a very proud Jew. And that's something that I try to instill in my children today, and something my father instilled in me. Be proud of who you are. Don't ever be embarrassed. And the other thing is, owning my own business, my uncle talked about it, my Uncle Eli talked about it, being honest. He took that Google review. I find that kind of comical that my grandfather had a Google review. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even know what Google is. And he was so honest. And then in a business that's so notorious, like even today you go to a car mechanic and it's like, you'd always, you ask who's an honest car mechanic, and you're lucky if you get even one person to go to. He was so honest. It's something that I take very, very seriously, and a legacy that I carry on, because at the end of the day, really what matters when it comes to business, when it comes to dealing with people, is be honest. Be an honest person, because if you're an honest person, you'll go very far in life. People think they could take shortcuts. I'll cheat this guy, I'll lie. You're only cheating yourself, because in the end, you end up at the bottom. The honest people always end up at the top. And I just want to finish by saying there are 2 people here in this room that I'm incredibly indebted to. And that's my Aunt Kreen and Aunt Natalie. Fathers pray to have daughters like Aunt Natalie and Aunt Kreen. I have 4 daughters, and I pray every day that my daughters Ayala, Zahav, and Aman Ali Zachai will be as dedicated to my wife and I as they were to Saba and Arta Safta. To say thank you to them really doesn't seem to be sufficient, because they did everything for them. They do everything for Safta. So I just want to personally say that I'm incredibly grateful to the 2 of you for everything you've done, and I really appreciate it, for always being there for Saba and Safta. And even though my grandfather may not be physically here with me right now, I know that he's always going to be with me. I just have to talk to him and turn to him, and I know that he'll be Melitz Yosher for myself, my family, for his kids, his grandkids, and he'll always be here with me. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Natan to come up to say a few words.
So I would like to start off with a few thoughts that I had on the way here. And then I'm going to read something that my brother wrote on behalf of my siblings and myself. So I drove here early from the Poconos, and I was thinking about all the memories and that I had with Saba, and it's really a privilege not many people have to have grown up with their grandparents and their grandfather. My family lived only around maybe even less than a mile from our grandparents, and we would spend Shabbat and holidays with them, and it was really amazing memories. I also had the privilege of being able to walk back with Saba every week from shul, and he would always tell me stories about Morocco, and I really think this is something that was very, very special to me. And okay, so and now I will read what my brother wrote, and then I'm going to actually bring another memory that came to me as I was driving here from the Poconos. If I close my eyes and focus hard enough, I can see Saba now. He's standing in a field of knee-high lemon and olive-colored grasses. There's a smile on his face and a soccer ball between his legs. His lean muscles, chiseled by all-day bicycle treks between Moroccan towns, are tanned by the late afternoon sun. Since this is happening in my mind, I imagine a grove of wild mango trees glinting with golden fruit, the tropical fragrance sharp on the breeze. Saba laughs with astonished delight and points at the mango trees. A rush of memories surfaces. All the Shabbat morning, Saba peeled and cut yellow mangoes for us, knowing they were our favorite. Once we finished the fruit, he would insist we eat the Haagen-Dazs ice cream bars he kept well stocked for us in the freezer, despite my parents' half-hearted objections that it would spoil our appetite for lunch. This is something very special to me too, this memory. Every Shabbat, almost every Shabbat, we would have our little kiddush that my grandparents would set up, and Saba was really made sure we had ice cream. He would always, no matter how busy he was in the week, he would always buy ice cream for us and fruit, and he would always cut up the fruit, and we had an amazing fruit salad before lunch, and it was unbelievable. Thank you, Saba, we chimed before devouring them. At lunchtime, Saba would recite Hamotzi and slice Safta's delicious challah. I would marvel at his hands. The sheer size and texture of each finger amazed me. His day job fixing car radiators rendered the skin rough like parchment paper. But as he passed out Safta's challah, each motion was full of the most tender love and care. Nothing made Saba happier than to have his family around him, to be hugged and kissed. He was so sweet and kind and affectionate. He was a hardworking man, an immigrant, who came to America knowing barely a word of English, a devoted husband, a father, and to me, a Saba. On walks from the Chabad Shul near our Northeast Philly home to Saba and Savta's house, Saba would regale us with anecdotes from his life in Morocco. The story about his pet parakeet, for instance. Saba would release the parakeet in the wilderness so it could fly, but the bird would always return to its cage. When Saba left it in a family member's care for a few days, he learned that the parakeet had passed away. He missed me too much and didn't want to live without me, Saba explained. He told us about the time he broke his toe accidentally kicking a rock instead of a soccer ball, and the time someone stole his brand new bicycle. Devastated, he informed the police. By some miracle, the bicycle was recognized, and the police apprehended the suspect. When Saba witnessed the police roughly interrogating the thief, he pleaded with them not to punish him too harshly. If I close my eyes and focus hard enough, Saba is still there, in a lush meadow with that smile on his face and that soccer ball between his legs. He doesn't say a word to me, just passes me the soccer ball with a small kick. A sudden commotion of squawking and flapping breaks the silence. Saba laughs and points to the beautiful parakeet that has aligned on his shoulder. Look, Abenti, he says. His pet parakeet has returned to him after all these years. And I did want to say, on my way here, I saw a very colorful bird, and this colorful bird was feeding a baby bird. And I know just from general knowledge that the colorful birds are the male birds, and so it was a father feeding its son. And this really, I think, encapsulates my experience of Saba's nurturing nature. He always went out to spend time with us on Shabbat, and all the memories. It's very, it's very sad to that he's no longer with us. but I'm very thankful for all the time that I was able to spend with him. And I will never forget the memories that I've had, and I'm sure my siblings will say, like we've had with our Saba. Thank you, Saba, for everything.
Unfortunately, I had very little opportunity to share a moment with Mr. Addi, and it's really a bracha to be able to hear from rabbis who knew him well and from family about the vibrance, the energy that he carried throughout his life. I do have one particular memory. Steve and Corinne called me a little while back and said, Corinne's parents are moving to Cherry Hill. We need to fix mezuzahs in the house. So I figured it was going to be, they would be there. Maybe Corinne and Steve would come too, and we'd do a quiet thing. I have done it before, put a mezuzah up in the house, okay, and it'll be a small thing. And I arrive at the house and walk in, and there's 20 people there. I think it's family had come in from all over. Oh, they're putting the mezuzahs up. We have to come. We have to be there with the family. And already at that point, Mr. Addi had slowed down quite a bit, but you saw reflected in the celebration in that moment of the mitzvah of likwa mezuzah. Yes, it's an important mitzvah, certainly, but to have the support of the family in those moments, the joy that was felt at that time really touched me. In a deep way, and you saw the love and respect that the family has for you and for your husband, and certainly it's reflected off of the dedication and the example that Mr. Addi set throughout his life in the many stories that we heard today, and we'll continue to hear, the memories we'll continue to reflect upon and learn from for many years to come. Ask everyone at this point to please rise. We're going to recite the Kel Maleh, the memorial prayer. El Maleh Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Al Kanfei Hashchina Bimalos Kidoshim Utorim Kazorakia Mazhirim Es Nishmas Gabriel ben Shalom Shalach Lolamo Bavor Asher Nachnu Mispalalim Bad Haskaros Nishmaso Bigan Eden Temnu Chaso Lachein Balarachamim Yasdirehu Biseser Knafav Liolamim Vitzor Bitzorachim Es Nishmaso Adonai Yehu Nachalaso V'yanuach b'shalom mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Before we begin the Levayas HaMeis, escorting the deceased as they head towards the airport, towards Eretz Yisrael, just want to share details of the Shiva, at least the beginning. More details will be sent out in email over the course of the day. The Shiva will be taking place at the Addi Home, 242 Breeders Run Drive, up at the top of Chapel Avenue in Cherry Hill, on the 4th floor. Visiting today will be certainly for the immediate family immediately following, but for those friends who would like to visit, starting today, Shiva visiting hours after 3 p.m. Mincha Marav this evening will be at 8:05, and the full minyan schedule will be forthcoming in the coming hours as we discuss and figure out the schedule amongst the family. Yoshe b'seser el yom mitzol shadai slanan. Amar la nay machsimu to si Elohai avtach bo. Ki yatzilcha mipach yakush miver havavos bevaso yesach lach besachas kenavav techseh. Tzina v'socher amitolo sirim pach alayla mechetzi of yamam midever bofa yaloch mikatev yashut